everyone. Let us begin this event with a short prayer. Dear God, we thank you for blessing us with a new day and for gathering us all for this first event of Celebrate Earth 2020. May we learn and share our knowledge during this session, and may we use our talents to glorify and protect this beautiful nature that you have created. God of creation, bless us all.
Thank you, Bunny. Now I call Julius to
Yeah,
introduce our
thank you, Noah.
speaker for the day.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the first event of Celebrate Earth, which is Nurture Nature. Our speaker for today is Janice Gomes. She is a deputy project manager at Atma Sabhua. Atma being Agriculture Training and Management Agency. It's that it's that wing of the agriculture department which deals with outreach and trainings. The other ones to bring new technology to farmers. Whenever something new, like a new piece of hardware, like some machinery comes out, or a new method of planting comes out, the other ones to bring and encourage farmers to adopt these new practices. So she has agreed very generously to spend her Sunday morning to educate us in kitchen gardening. Specifically, she's also going to talk about how to plant vegetables and produce in pots. So no matter what your living situation is, whether you're living in a house, whether you're living in an apartment, whether you're living in a box beside the road, you should have space to grow plants in pots. So pay attention because we do expect you to implement all of this. So within the next 1 week, we expect you to prepare a pot and sow something within that pot and also document what you're doing for that 1 week. So without any further ado, I head it over to Janice. Oh, quick note. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat. We will have a question Q&A session later on, but if you have anything in between, enter that into the chat, and when the flow of the talk permits, Janice will address them. Right, that's all. Over to Janice now.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
So today I will be speaking on kitchen gardening. As you all know, let me begin with what is kitchen gardening. Now, kitchen gardening is nothing but growing a continuous supply of fruits and vegetables in and around your house, whether it's in pots or some bit of land around the house, so that you get a continuous supply of your own produce around the year. Let me give you a tell you in brief about the benefits of a kitchen garden. Basically, people of your generation, I have seen for myself, are mostly with their, I call them mean machines. They are with their laptops, their cell phones, all to themselves. But if you'll go out a little bit and grow something, it will be a very healthy hobby for you. It will also ensure family bonding so that all get together to produce something for yourselves. The waste that is gathered in the house, kitchen waste, any biodegradable waste can be composted into manure. This will also provide you a continuous supply of fresh fruits and vegetables and provide a clean and soothing and a scenic surrounding which you all can bask in. It will save you quite a bit of money because nowadays everything that's local is sold as gaunti in vernacular language, and it is almost double the price. So considering a saving of rupees 50 bucks a day can be anything between 1,500 to 2,000 a month. And it also makes for excellent gifts if you'll wrap it well with a nice big red bow. Now, what can be grown? I've basically classified the produce into three classes based on their lifespan. That is perennial, annuals or biennials, and seasonal crops. The perennials are the ones which take years, which survive for years. For example, I've given examples like breadfruit, gherkins, curry patta, pepper, cinnamon, bimli, passion fruits, mangoes, cashews, anything that lasts for long. Annuals and biennials complete their life cycle in 1 or 2 years. Here in this category, we can consider bananas, pineapples, papayas, Then in the seasonal category, you have all sorts of leafy vegetables like spinach, palak, methi, amaranthus, radish, turnips, chilies, and herbs like mint, basil, corianders. Now, there are basically three broad methods of planting. The first one I will deal with is transplanting. This means you raise the seedlings in one place and you plant them in another place. There are vegetables which require only transplanting as their method of planting. If you plant them directly, they do not grow. Now, examples of this will be chili, brinjal, turnips, tomatoes, and things like that. The direct sowing barns is where you sow the seeds directly into the pots or into the ground, like ladyfingers, all sorts of leafy vegetables like amaranthus, palak, radish, pumpkins, all melons and gourds can be planted directly into the pot or into the ground. Similarly, the third method of planting involves planting of rhizomes. You can see the picture below. I've given you a ginger rhizome. Similarly, you all must have seen turmeric rhizomes, which can be directly planted into the ground, whether in a pot or in the ground. Then you can plant cuttings of tangely, drumstick. These are some examples. Now, when you plant cuttings, you must make sure that the cuttings are maturing. If you plant tender cuttings, they will not strike roots. So the wood should be like kind of hard wood and it should be a mature cutting. Now let me explain transplanting in detail. Now what you need to know is that every plant needs a medium to grow. Now here I will take soil. You need a mixture of good red soil, some amount of sand that will help in drainage. You can use either coir pit or compost. Mix all the three together and you get a nice good medium for the plants to grow. You can raise the seedlings in different containers like boxes, plastic pots, your ice cream tubs, plastic glasses, plastic trays, or your Tetra Paks. You also have something called seedling trays, each having around 32 spaces for the seedlings to grow. But you need not go in for the expensive seedling trays, just use what is there in and around the house. Now what you need to do, you have to fill the containers with the medium, the soil medium that I just told you, and water it a few hours before sowing. Water sparingly, the moisture should be just enough so that, like, if you imagine that you hold the soil in your hand, you can form a nice ball of sand. It should not be too much and it should not be too less either. Now when you're actually sowing, just before that, you press the soil gently once it's watered. Leave a 2 to 3 inch space above and sow the seeds like this. You open up small furrows either with your finger or with a stick at a distance of about 5 to centimeters between two rows to a desired depth. Now what I mean by desired depth is, this is the thumb rule, that the depth should be 3 to 4 times the size of the seed. Seeds grown too deep will not sprout well, and seeds which are grown superficially will be carried away by ants or eaten away by birds. After you plant the seeds in the soil, cover them lightly with a thin layer of soil. Avoid thick sowing. Now, what happens when you sow thickly? The plants, you cannot see the roots in the ground, but there is overcrowding of roots, and there is no sufficient space for the roots. And when the seedlings that you get are having a less vigor, they are very weak and frail, and they will either not grow well or they will grow into weak seedlings. It's like, when you build a house for 5 people and you try to fit in another 15 people in it and there's overcrowding. This is exactly what happens when you plant too thickly. If you want to plant them in individual cups, make a small depression. The earlier slide was like planting the seeds in a big tray. But this slide will show you how to plant in individual cups. So make a small depression right at the center. Keep in mind the depth of planting, that is about 3 to 4 times the size of the seed. Insert 1 to 2 seeds per cup and gently cover the soil. Once this is done, you cover the tray or the pot with either newspaper or dry grass or even a plastic sheet. What happens with this is that the humidity goes up. For any seed to sprout, there has to be some amount of heat. You will find that with this, once you cover the soil with a newspaper or plastic, the humidity builds up and sprouting is quicker. When you want to water the seeds, that will be maybe once in the evening, every day till they are sprouted. Remove the newspaper and the plastic wrapping and water sparingly. Remember not to overwater. Most plants die due to overwatering rather than underwatering. You water either with a rose can. If you don't have a rose can, use a simple mug, but place your palm and let the water first fall on your palm and then gently onto the seeds, onto the plants. Once they are ready in about 3 to 4 weeks, when the plants have 4 to 5 leaves, you will have to transplant them either into the main plot or in the ground outside your house. Transplanting is usually done in the evenings, anytime after 5 o'clock. Water the plants a few hours before uprooting them. Take a small trowel and insert it right underneath so that you reach the roots and try to uproot the seedlings. This can also be done by hand, but see that you uproot the seedlings by holding them close to the ground and not at the top, so as to avoid the seedlings from breaking. Once this is done, separate the seedlings. Do not wash off or shake off the soil that is gathered around the roots. Now, this is done so that, sometimes when you will go for camps or you will visit relatives and you'll have to spend the night there, you all will take a book or something that's close to you so that you don't feel out of place. Similar is the situation when you transplant a seedling. Let it go to the new place with its original ball of soil so that it feels good that it's taking something with it and it has already it has a bond with the old soil. Do not try breaking the roots at any point of time. Transplant only the healthy seedlings. Seedlings which appear weak and thin and lean and lanky should be avoided. Transplant immediately. Make a hole of a desired depth, as I have shown you in the second figure, so that the roots get sufficient space. And plant the seedlings in the hole. This can be either in the pot or in the ground. And gently press the soil. Water sparingly. You can maintain a distance of about, if it's in the ground, of about 1 foot between 2 plants in a row and about 10 centimeters between 2 plants in the same row. Keep the plant free of weeds. In case there are melons or gourds or creepers, you will need to trail them at a later stage when they grow big, but before that you will have to stake them, as I've shown you in the picture on top. That is, simply put a stick and tie it with a string to prevent the winds from dislodging it. Adopt suitable pest and control measures, which I will explain now. Before that, once you've done with your actual planting, and if you feel that some plants have died, keep a sufficient stock of healthy seedlings in the nursery, so that you can use those to replace the dead and the diseased plants in the main pot. Light earthing up is nothing but piling some amount of soil at the base of the plant so as to give it an additional anchorage and support. Now, coming to manuring. Vegetables grow best in organic manures. They look good, they taste good, and they're healthy. You can use manures like compost, vermicompost. The difference between compost and vermicompost is the compost that is made by earthworms, and the other compost is you can use cow dung or any decomposing agent to decompose your biodegradable waste. That's the only difference between vermicompost and the other compost. Cow dung is also a good manure. Neem cake, fish meal, blood meal, bone meal, all these are manures. Now, what actually does a plant need? What do you mean by manuring? The three essential nutrients that a plant needs is NPK. That is nothing but N stands for nitrogen, P is phosphorus, and K is potassium. Now let me tell you the role of each of these nutrients. Nitrogen helps in building up all the greens. That means it helps in the leafy growth of the plant. Phosphorus helps in root development, and potassium comes in at a later stage. That is, it helps in flowering and fruiting. So now this gives you a rough idea of what nutrient is required at what time. When you initially plant something, you need more of nitrogen and phosphorus. When it comes to flowering and fruiting, you need more of potassium. If you go to the market, you will find packages with these numbers on them, 19, 19, 19, or 10, 26, 26. All this is nothing but the percentage of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, in that order, that is present in that particular bag of fertilizers. If you look at urea, it is a straight fertilizer. There are some fertilizers called straight fertilizers, and there are some which are complex fertilizers or combination fertilizers. The ones like 19, 19, 19, which means they have all the three nutrients packed in one package. They are complex fertilizers or combination fertilizers. Straight fertilizers like urea and MOP. MOP is nothing but murate of potash. That will give you only potash, whereas urea gives you only nitrogen. Our organic waste such as eggshells, fish and chicken waste can also be recycled into compost and added to the plants for nutrition. Do not at any stage try to add these without decomposing. Now, coming to pests. You know, unlike us, plants cannot talk. They only change colors. If a plant finds something troubling it, it will turn from green to yellow and from yellow to brown. Observe the plants minutely every day. Look out for holes on the leaves, or if any chlorophyll is scraped off the leaves. Or if there are lots of ants gathering on the plants, this means there is something wrong with the plants. I would suggest you all to go in for herbal pesticides. Herbal pesticides are to be used irrespective of pest attack, whether or not it's there. It's called a prophylactic measure. That is before the plant is actually attacked by pests. Now we have our own very own homemade pesticides. If you just sprinkle turmeric powder once in 8 days or ash once in 8 days, that takes care of a lot of pests. Similarly, you can have an extract of green chilies and garlic, or an extract of neem and tulsi leaves. Make a weak solution, grind these well, make a weak solution and spray them once a week. Another method that can be used is yellow sticky traps. Now you all will be surprised to know that most of the insect pests get attracted to the color yellow. So what you need to do, you can take a chart paper or an old tin and paint it a nice bright yellow. And when you're painting it, add some sticker like Fevicol or something like that. Make a hole and hang it around the plants. Now what happens is this, when the insects get attracted to this color, they simply stick onto the chart or the tin, the yellow tin, and they get stuck there forever. Another method that can be used is the use of a light trap. I've shown you a picture there. You take a tub and fill it with water. You can add a pinch of liquid soap, or just plain water will also do, and keep it out once in a day at dusk. You need not keep it throughout the day because insects are nocturnal by nature and they will come only after 6:37. Keep it for 1 hour or so, from 6:30 to 7:30 or from 7 to 8. That's the time they will all get attracted, the adults. What will get attracted is the adults, they are the mothers. Normally, the stage that affects the plant or which destroys the plant is the larva. Now try to remember that this is the life cycle. From the egg you get a larva, from the larva you get an adult. So when you're trapping the adult by use of the sticky traps and the light traps, you are controlling the pest population. You are killing the mother of the pest. The other method that can be used, you can simply pick up the larvae and squash them and kill them there itself. That's like a mechanical control which can be done so as to avoid the use of chemical pesticides. Now this is a list of vegetables that can be grown from June to September. Let me repeat them for you. Ladyfingers, brinjals, chilies, cluster beans, cucumbers, pumpkins, stinglies, melons and gourds, long beans, etc. Some of these can also be grown in the other seasons, like this. Now, vegetables that are grown in winter are normally chilies, onions. Amaranthus is nothing but tambi bhaji. There's another variant that we call it dovi bhaji, which is actually green in color. Then there are turnips, nolcoals, radish, tomatoes, etc. The third season will be from March to May, wherein you can grow back again bendies, ladyfingers, chilies, watermelons, cucumbers, all gourds, tomatoes, amaranthus, cluster beans. Cluster beans is nothing but chitki mitki. Now, if you want to have a look at of how it's done and where it's done in Goa, villages like Verna, Majorda, Arlene, Davorlin, Kepe, Sangeng, Kanukon, you will find vegetables being grown round the year. Most of the vegetables that is sold in these areas is from their own farms. Some of them even supply to the Horticulture Corporation. Now coming to growing of vegetables in pots. Now what is best about this is you can handle the pots, you can shift them conveniently to a desired location, and they are easy to handle. Now there are different types of pots that can be used. As I've shown you in this slide, this can also be used. You can recycle all that you have. But mind you, clay pots are the best. That's because they keep the plant cool round the year and they are porous in nature. So if you have a choice between buying something that's plastic, please go in for clay pots or mud pots instead, or simply recycle what you already have. Now what is most essential is that they should have a drainage hole either at the side or down below right at the bottom. Now there is something called crocking a pot. A crock is nothing but a piece of a broken tile or a bit of a ceramic that is placed over the drainage holes so as to prevent it from getting clogged with the soil. Now how do you do it? Now you place a bit of a crock on the drainage hole. If the pot is very big, you can put smaller crocks at the base, as you can see in this picture. For larger pots, you can put a layer of stones or pieces at the bottom and cover it with coarse sand. Now, coarse sand is used because it is coarse and it helps in the drainage of excess water. Fill the pot with a mixture that I told you earlier, that is with sand, some soil and compost. Leave about 4 inches of space right at the top to hold the water. And sow the seeds in the pot as I have mentioned. You remember the depth, the thumb rule that the depth should be 3 to 4 times their size, not too shallow, not too deep. The sowing depends on the size of the seed, as I've just told you. Cover the seeds once they are planted, water sparingly, and keep it in partial shade. Once they have grown after about 3 to 4 weeks, turn them regularly so that they are symmetrical. Provide stakes for creepers or melons or gourds once they start climbing up. Apply pesticides and manures as and when required. But when it comes to herbal pesticides, you can use them once every week, irrespective of the pest attack. Now, these are some of the locally made stakes which can be made by you all. This is one farmer who has done a nice grid on top. This can also be done in a circular fashion. This can also be used for not only for vegetables, also for flowers. This is another one in the shape of a ladder. You can grow, here in this slide, you will see that one plant, there is one bag having long beans, the other one has got rich gourds. So you have two different varieties growing on the same stake. You can add more as well. This is in somebody's balcony where she has grown lots of chilies. Chilies, when you grow them, see that they get plenty of sunlight. And yellow traps work best for chilies. This is again in an apartment where this lady has tried growing rich gourds and was successful at it. This is planting of fruits in pots. But make sure that you use big pots. For this, the dia should be at least 1 foot by 1 foot, because the roots need space to grow. So please don't use small or medium pots when you're growing fruits. This is planting on the terrace. Now coming to pots, some of you all will already have plants in pots, and they will be like this if you lift them up and see for yourselves. You will observe that the plants simply refuse to grow well in spite of giving it all. If you give them all the water that they require, the sunlight, the manures, but they still don't grow. Try lifting one and you will see roots all underneath coming out of the pot. Now this is called a pot-bound plant. What happens here is that the soil dries out quickly and it requires frequent watering, and they are still lean and lanky. What you need to do, you need to repot these plants into another pot or in the same pot. For that, you will have to remove the plant out. You water the plant a few hours before repotting, and you run a knife between the soil and the edge of the pot so as to loosen the soil. Spread the fingers of your hand over the surface of the soil with the plant between the two fingers. Invert the pot gently and knock the rim of the pot on the table. You will get the plant along with the boil of soil to come out, and if it does not come out, just tap it a little bit more or push a blunt stick from the drainage hole, and with a slight jerk, you should be able to get it out. Remove all the crocks and loosen the soil. Carefully, you tease out the matted leaves and cut out any rotten or dead roots that are all cluttered. Once you've done this, place the plant on top of the compost layer in the new pot. Remember to crock it up and fill in your compost or your soil mixture, and gradually place the uprooted plant into this new pot. Water lightly, press the soil lightly, water it lightly, and keep it in partial shade. You can move it to its permanent location after about a month or so. Till that time, let it acclimatize in partial shade. This is back again the same thing. You form the compost or the soil mixture around the edges with your fingers, water it carefully, and place in the shade for a few days before shifting it to its normal location. If it is to be planted in the same pot, you remove about 25% of the soil ball and cut off the dead and decayed roots and plant it with your soil mixture. Now, this is something that can be done creatively. These are pictures of creative pots that can be put to use. You will find many of these things lying in and around your house. This is a clay pot. You can fill it with a soil mixture and plant. You can plant the same type of plants or use different types of plants. These are all old kettles. See that they have a drainage hole before you plant. This is a chimney. These are old tires. Make sure that they all have drainage holes. These are bits of wood, some shells. These are PVC pipes or hollow bamboos. This is a coconut husk, a baby shoe, an old bulb, bamboo again. These are, you should be able to tell me this, these are pet bottles. They're excellent for herbs, for like coriander, mint, basil, evergreen, and they look nice. These are bottles again. Same thing displayed differently. And then another arrangement of pet bottles. Pet bottles again. These are onions growing in pet bottles, kept on the ground. You can keep them in your balcony. These are baby shoes, gumboots, tires. You can grow vegetables as well. Now I'd like to give you some tips. Back again, role of NPK, just a quick recap. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium helps in leafy growth, root growth, or fruiting and flowering in that order. Now, if you're using hybrid seeds, always remember that hybrid seeds work for one generation only, for one season only. Do not expect them to give you the same yield if you're going to use them again. They are not to be used for the next crop. Now, source of supply. I've told you about the containers. Try to use what you have in the house. Your mud will be there in some old pots or around the house. Manures and fertilizers can be made by composting all that is there. For seeds, you can go to any zonal agriculture office of the agriculture department, where seeds are always in supply, or you go to reputed local dealers like Kakoda Farms in Margao, where you can get your planting material. Taking of vines and creepers is very much essential. And there is something called staggered planting. Staggered planting is nothing but, it's mostly followed for vegetables, where you keep a gap of 8 to 10 days between sowings so that you get a continuous supply of vegetables. Otherwise, all your vegetables will be ready at one time and you will not know what to do with it. You will use the entire packet of seeds and whatever manures. So you grow them within a gap by keeping a gap of 8 to 10 days. This is called staggered planting. Now, to conclude, this process of growing your own is very cost effective, low maintenance. The only requirements are a lot of patience, love, and perseverance. Start with one or a few pots and then expand them. You can grow fruits or vegetables that will be ready in 30 to 45 days or about 2 months. But if you plant tambi bhaji, you will get it in 20 days time. Early yield will keep you encouraged. Keep adding more and more varieties of fruits and vegetables as you progress, and there is no turning back once you start. Now, as far as I would like you all to begin with something as easy as ginger and turmeric. Fill the pot, as I've told you. If you go to the market these days, you will find ginger. Keep it in your house, keep it in a cool place. After a few days, it will start sprouting. Use that as your planting material and plant that. Water very sparingly once in 4 to 5 days. Do not water it every day because it will start rotting inside. So to begin with, you all could use ginger or turmeric to plant. It will come up in 10 to 15 days time, but for you all to harvest the entire crop, it will take you about 7 months. That is when the leaves start drying. That is the time you know that the ginger is ready. But you can use the tops for soups or salads. Happy gardening. If you'll have any queries, please ask. Plants like cacti can also be grown, but see that you don't water them enough often. Once in 10 days is more than enough, depending on which time of the year. If it is in summer, you will have to water them maybe after 3 days, but from about June to September, water it just once a week. Seeds for people living in Panjim, you can go to any local dealer there, or the nearest zonal agriculture office for you will be in Old Goa in the Ella Farm complex. That is zonal agriculture officer Tiswadi. You can give them a call before you make a trip there just to make sure whether they have the stock. That goes for all the people who will be going to the zonal agriculture offices. Please give them a call and then only side by side growing of two vegetables. You can do that provided you have a nice big pot, or you can grow in two different pots. Like I've shown you that slide of long beans and ridge gourd growing in two different pots, but they are trailed on one stake. The round cage in Margao, you will have to get it fabricated. Otherwise, you can do it one for yourself. You can simply take strong bamboos, and with sutli, with the local sutli, you can get a nice tray. Or you get something called pet wire. Pet wire is if you ask the dealers for pet wire, they will give it to you. It is like a thick fiber which is used to trail melons and goats. You ask for pet wire. No, yellow sticky notes are too small in size. You need the size of about at least half a chart, or say 1 foot by 1 foot. They need to have some sticking agent on it so that the insects get stuck to it.
So I think that's if anyone has any more questions, you can unmute yourself now and start asking them. I think we've covered the questions so far that were put in chat.
How many months does it take to grow coriander?
Coriander will take you about 20 days to 30 days. Within a month, you should be able to get it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
But
ma'am.
when you're going to coriander, I would give you one piece of advice. Use seeds. Soak the coriander seeds in water. You can use an old sock and seed one and grow them the next day. Do not plant them too deep.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes,
do coriander seeds from the market will do for that?
Yes. You need to rub them into two halves, so that you open them. You have to, when you plant coriander, you have to plant two halves of the coriander seed. Otherwise, to begin with, you soak them overnight and plant them the next day. Do not use seeds which are roasted, please. Because mothers tend to roast the coriander seeds at home to prevent them from getting spoiled, and those will not work to plant them.
My dad had grown ginger, but I guess we never harvested them. So are they assuming the plant grows every year? So when can we harvest them, like the right time?
You will have to harvest them somewhere in March, when the foliage dries. When the leaves dry up, that's the time it will be ready. That will take
Okay,
you
thank
about
you.
10 months. 10 months from the time.
What about finding seeds nearer than Old Goa?
For people in Panjim,
Yep.
try in. Can I get back to you later after I find out?
Yes, will do.
Yes.
Hi, what is the sticky substance you told about? I mean, can you give me some examples which I can put?
Sticky substance is nothing but, are you talking of yellow sticky traps?
All small beetles. There are small beetles all around my Richford creeper, and they are stinking the fruits which are coming, so they die sooner.
You can spray them with chili garlic extract or neem extract, what I've told you. If that doesn't work, then maybe as a final resort, you'll have to use chemical pesticides.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
How could we prevent snails from eating the leaves?
How could you prevent?
Snails.
You won't,
Snails. Yeah,
you won't
snails.
find many of them. Are there too many? Can you simply handpick them?
Yeah, there are too. No, there are too many. Like they're eating the leaves of the plants I planted.
The first thing is, if you can handpick them and squash them, that's the best thing. Otherwise, if you use coffee powder or flat beer in the house, used coffee powder helps to prevent them. Or if you have beer which is flat, somebody has drunk and left, you can use beer to spray them.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have one more question. It's regarding my tomato plants, okay? So to artificially hand pollinate them, I tap on them, okay, for a few seconds. But the thing is, they still don't get pollinated and the flowers die off. So my production of tomatoes goes down. How do I help it with more?
Have you grown tomatoes earlier?
Yes.
So you have hand pollinated and you were good at it? You succeeded in that?
I succeeded, like, it's not much of, but like I get 4 to 5 tomatoes for a plant at a time. So that's all. Remaining, all the flowers go, they dry off.
You try putting potash. How many plants do you? Around 1 teaspoon per plant, 2 spans away, not too close to the plant.
Okay.
In addition to potash, you put your organic manures, compost or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, welcome. Hello, is there anybody else with any more questions?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Can you give me
Uh,
can you give me an
could you put-
example of
Hello.
Yes. Example of?
Uh,
no, let it continue.
no, I was wondering if you could, would you be making a recording, please? Because this internet has been a little bad and there have been some interruptions also.
Yeah, you bet. We'll be
Yes,
making a
yes,
recording.
yes.
Yes, we can give you that.
Sure. Can you give me an example of sticky traps? Like how to make it or how to use it?
Okay. You take a flat tin or a chart paper, yellow chart paper, and okay, and paint it yellow. You can take your oil paint,
Okay.
a bright yellow oil paint. When you're painting, put some sticker like Fevicol so that it sticks. The thing is, you need two things for this. The color should be yellow and it should be sticky enough. The yellow color will get the moths or the attracted to it, but what will trap them is the stickiness of the trap. So you
Okay.
paint them a bright yellow and you put some gum or something on it so that it sticks. The moths stick to it. You will
Yeah, ma'am.
not find larvae creeping on it. You will find only the adults, the moths coming there.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Ma'am, using turmeric powder is a good way to keep the like as a pesticide. Is it good?
Yes, it's a prophylactic measure. It will not give you that much of a curative effect. It is to prevent. It's more of a preventive measure. All these herbal pesticides are preventive in nature.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
We have some nice questions in the chat. Larissa asks, what type of soil is good for growing periwinkle?
Beg your pardon?
What type of soil is good for growing periwinkle?
Periwinkle is a very hardy plant, except for extremely clayey and pasty soil. It grows in sandy soil or your normal soil, but avoid pasty or clayey soils. If you have a soil which is very clayey in nature, try mixing some compost with it or some sand so that the drainage improves. But it requires a lot of sunlight.
Then Vanita asks, how do I invite earthworms into the soil?
Use locally available soil. To that, if you must make sure that there are a few earthworms when you start start planting. Without having a single earthworm, you will not be able to get more earthworms into it. So you take soil from a place which has got a lot of earthworms. This is the right season to get, from any other. If you go to the villages, just take some soil from under a big tree. You will find small mounds of molten soil that gives you an idea that there are earthworms in the ground. Or if you just dig, you'll find lots of earthworms. Use that soil. And avoid chemical fertilizers because that will kill the earthworms. So you can use your fish water, your chicken water, which you'll have, once you'll wash your fish or chicken. That will also help the earthworms to grow. Do not use any citrus, lemons and orange peels because that kills the earthworms. They don't like it.
We have another question. This is one guy who says he saw his dad cover a grafted plant using coconut skin, and he wants to know how that helps with the graft.
Cover the grafted?
So while grafting one plant to another plant, his dad used coconut skin to cover the grafted part. How does that help?
No, that helps the joint to grow. This is, it won't be that will be, he has covered the graft joint. because once that helps to, he has covered it with coconut husk so that it strikes roots. So once it grows, it strikes roots, he's going to chop it off, and that will be a totally an independent graft by itself, which he will cut off and plant again. That is basically the soil that or the medium for it, for the graft to strike roots.
And I believe this is a follow-up question to the same thing. Are there any suggestions to make the roots grow faster?
There is a rooting hormone which you can just dip the cutting. You dip it in that, in dry powder. It's a powder. It's called Ceradix or Keradix, and tip it off with your fingers. Just give it a light tip. It should be just enough, and then you plant. That's a rooting hormone. Ask for a rooting hormone.
Then we have a question by Vanita. Why do papaya plants die after growing to a certain height? They look healthy and then suddenly they just die.
See, there could be many reasons to this. One is papaya cannot withstand waterlogging. So if there is too much of waterlogging, this is one reason. The other one is it may not be getting the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of water, the right amount of sunlight. These are generally the reasons why papayas die. Or there is something called a viral attack. That's a yellow vein mosaic. You'll find like a mosaic kind of a pattern on the leaves. That's a viral disease, and they wither off with that disease.
You said about a mosaic disease. That has happened to my plants at least twice, I think. How do we help get rid of it, or how can we cure it, or how can we prevent it?
See, what you will have to do, avoid planting papaya in the same area for about 2 years. Do not use the seeds or the seedlings of that papaya so that they will carry on the disease with them. You buy a fresh or take a fresh stock of seed or seedlings from a non-infected plant and grow it in a non-infected area. When you're making the pit, see that the pit is at least 2 by 2 by 2 feet. That means 2 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet deep. Expose it to sunlight for about 1 to 2 months. Or you can burn some ash or put some ash in it, or put some dried leaves into the pit and burn them in the pit itself and expose it to the sunlight. And then go in for planting.
Thank you.
Yes. If you have got any papaya plants which are affected with this disease right now in your garden, simply discard them. You knock them off.
Okay, another question.
What about papaya trees which have that curly leaf effect? That tree is doomed?
That's the same thing. That's a viral disease. I just told this girl earlier. You can knock off those trees because they're not going to recover, and dig the place around. Don't plant papayas in that same area. Leave it for about 1 to 2 years. You can plant them elsewhere in your garden, but make sure that those that you buy are not from the same tree. Don't use the seeds from that tree or even the seedlings. You buy or use plants which do not have this disease.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Another question by Yvette. Can compost made with citrus peels kill earthworms?
No, but generally citrus peels is to be avoided in for vermicomposting. You can use them provided they are partially decomposed and then fed to the earthworms. But generally avoid them, but if it is decomposed, then it will not harm the plant.
Thank you.
Now, Valeria asks, how would one grow cucumbers?
Just like any other vegetable plant, grow them. They don't need to be transplanted. You can grow them directly, and they can be grown anytime in the year, provided there is lots of organic manure and lots of drainage. Do not overwater them, please, and use the right amount of manure, water. your herbal pesticides, and stake them whenever it's required. Light traps also work best. I have explained this. I've shown you one slide of a light trap. It's nothing but a small light, maybe a solar light or even a small Petromax. You place it in a basin of water anytime between 6:30 to 7:30. Collect, and all the moths will get trapped into the water. This has to be serviced after every 1 to 2 days. Throw the water, add fresh water to the basin. This is the light trap. There's water in the basin. Once you can service it, that's nothing but changing the water after every 1 to 2 days.
We have another question on papaya again. Yvette asks, just before my fruit is the ready to ripe stage, the papaya tree collapses. Its roots give in and collapses. Why?
She could try putting potash at the time of flowering.
Thank you.
Yes.
Then another question by Chris. In how many days do you have to put water for orchids, and what sort of nutrients does it require?
See, the best thing for orchids, in the rainy season, they have to be watered maybe once in 15 days. Because orchids have the tendency of absorbing, they do absorb water from the atmosphere. So they don't really require watering in the rainy seasons. Once in 15 days is more than enough. And after that, maybe twice a day, but you have to spray water. You have to use a spray, what the barbers have. That is good enough for at the household level. And do not water them after 4:30 in the evening. Anytime before 4:30 or any time in the morning in the summer months. And manure can be even your compost. You just make a solution, let it settle, sieve it and spray. Or you get small sachets of NPK, like how you get in your Maggi noodles, you get a small sachet of the masala. Like that you can try it at Kakuda Farms. They normally have those. They're small sachets of ready to mix NPK. Put about 2 to 3 grams in a cup of water and spray once in 10 days.
Okay, we'll take up one last question because we're running out of time. If you guys have any more questions, send them to the moderators of your group and we'll forward them to Janice ma'am. So Varun asks, we used to get about 10 to 15 coconuts each last year, but in the last 2 years, we've been only getting 2 or 3 from each tree. Sometimes they are rotten inside. What is the cure for this?
Rotten inside, if I could see a picture. But then I would want to know how old is the tree and when was the last manuring done? Or is it having any borers inside?
At the top of the tree, there's something like I don't know, the leaf is not growing only, means it gets stuck. It's like a solid thing. So whenever
It's
we
like
have to,
choking the tree.
it's been I think 8 years, 8 years or more than 8 years.
If I can get a picture of the tree, then I should be able to help out.
Okay, I'll send it to the group and then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Right.
Julius.
Yes, Father.
We could wind up now, but those who are really interested, they could interact with her after the prayer.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Because since there are like-minded people who are still asking a lot of questions, those after the prayer, those who want to log out, they can log out. We can interact with ma'am maybe another 15 minutes or so till 1.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, Jules. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So what we have to do is we've got to wind up the session, like Father said. If you have more, and I believe Janice has to leave as well. So if you have any more questions, send them onto your group, your WhatsApp groups, your group leaders, and we'll forward them to Janice and get back to you from there. So thank you everyone for coming to this session. Thank you, Janice, for taking the time to be here. On behalf of the entire volunteer group and DBYS Panjim, we'd like to heartily thank every single one for making this event successful. Before we wind up, before we leave now, let's end with a short little prayer. Okay, God, thank you for this very instructive lecture that we've had today. Help us to implement what you've done and to make the world a better place the way you intended it to be with us humans. So, guys, thank you so much for logging in for today. Quick, before we break off, I need to explain what exactly this event is going to be within the next next 1 week. So at the beginning, when we started, you must have seen a lecture. This first slide, the poster, we'll post this on your groups later as well. What you're expected to do now is by the end of this week, we expect you to plant something in a pot. We aren't going to be very particular about what you plant or how much progress is made within a week. What we do care about is how well you prepare the pot. So at each stage, when you're cleaning the pot, the container, you're crocking it up, you're filling in the mixture and the soil, and then planting the seed. We want you to document each of those stages, with photographs at each stage. And at the end of that, make a short video explaining how you felt and what your perspective of agriculture is now that you've gone through that process. And then submit that to your group moderators. So that's all from us for today for this session. Thank you so much for coming. See you for the next session, which I believe is on tomorrow itself, on Tuesday. We have some more activities planned.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Julius. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for joining in, and hope to see you for our next activity that will be on Tuesday. It will be a Google form, that will be a Google quiz for everyone.